Quick question. If you wake up at 3 in the morning and cannot fall back asleep, is something wrong with you? For the last 2 centuries, the answer most people have been handed is yes, insomnia, stress, something to fix with a pill. But a growing body of historical and physiological research suggests a stranger possibility. Waking in the middle of the night might not be a malfunction at all. It might be the oldest, most ordinary part of human sleep, the part we forgot we ever had. The person most responsible for surfacing this idea is a historian, not a sleep scientist. Roger Ekirch, at Virginia Tech, spent years combing through pre-industrial diaries, court records, and medical texts. What he kept running into was an odd phrase, first sleep, and its companion, second sleep. The pattern he documented, across more than 2,000 references spanning a dozen languages and reaching back as far as ancient Greece, was strikingly consistent. People went to bed shortly after dusk, slept several hours in a first sleep, woke sometime after midnight for an hour or more of quiet activity, then fell into a second or morning sleep until dawn. This waking interval had its own name, the watching. People prayed, read, talked with a bed partner. One 16th century French medical manual even advised that the time after first sleep was the best window for conceiving a child, since couples have more enjoyment once the day's exhaustion had eased. This was not fringe. Ekirch found the practice referenced so casually as an offhand figure of speech in unrelated writing that it reads as something virtually everyone in that era simply recognized. And it was not confined to Europe. Similar customs, with local names for first and second sleep, have been documented in parts of Nigeria, Central America, and Brazil, persisting into the 20th century, wherever electric lighting arrived late. So why does virtually nobody sleep this way today? Ekirch points to a fairly specific hinge point, artificial light. As gas and then electric lighting spread, evening life stretched later into what had once been unambiguous nighttime. First sleep gradually expanded, squeezing the watching interval thinner, until by the end of the 19th century, it had shrunk to rolling over for an extra 10 minutes. It is worth noting, Ekirch's interpretation has not gone unchallenged. A 2023 paper argued some of these references might just reflect ordinary disrupted sleep, not a structured cultural pattern. Ekirch has published detailed responses defending his source material, and the debate remains active and unresolved within historical scholarship. In the early 1990s, psychiatrist Thomas Wehr tested whether this had a biological basis, not just a cultural one. He placed volunteers in 14 hours of nightly darkness, roughly a pre-electric winter night, for a month. By the 4th week, participants had settled into roughly 4-hour sleep blocks, separated by 1 to 3 hours of calm wakefulness, aligned almost exactly with what Ekirch was finding in centuries-old diaries, developed independently. Why might this pattern exist biologically? One theory involves a sentinel function. In small-scale societies without electricity, people do not all fall asleep or wake at the same time, meaning across a sleeping group, there is rarely a moment when everyone is unconscious at once, useful protection in an environment with real nighttime threats. There is also a physiological signature that lines up with something ordinary, not pathological. In Wehr's study, sleep onset was linked to a melatonin spike, and the waking period came without the racing heart or anxious alertness of modern insomnia. Participants described it as calm, almost meditative. The second sleep phase carried more REM, meaning people were waking soon after dreaming, giving them time to actually reflect on a dream before drifting off again. It is important to be honest about where this gets genuinely contested. A 2015 study led by Gandhi Yetish and Jerome Siegel examined 3 present-day societies without electricity: the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, and the Siman of Bolivia. If segmented sleep were the default ancestral pattern, these groups seemed like the obvious place to find it. Instead, researchers found mostly consolidated, single-block sleep averaging around 6.5 hours, with no routine middle-of-the-night waking. None of the 3 languages studied even had a word for insomnia. Other research complicates it further. A Madagascar farming community without electricity did show measurable segmentation, while these hunter-gatherer groups did not. Hadza sleep has also been shown to shift with moonlight. Fuller moons meant longer sleep and less nighttime activity. Taken together, The honest conclusion is not that Ekirch and Wehr were wrong, or that Yiddish and Siegel disproved them. It is that human sleep may be more flexible and context-dependent than any single natural pattern framework allows. Night length, temperature, activity, and environment all seem to push sleep architecture in different directions. Which brings us back to that 3 in the morning question. If you wake in the night and lie there a while before drifting off, the honest scientific answer is more reassuring than modern sleep culture usually offers. You might be tapping into something with real historical and physiological precedent, not something broken. That does not mean chronic. Distressing insomnia should go unaddressed. There is a real difference between the calm watching Ekirch documented and the anxious wakefulness many people experience today. But it does mean sleeping straight through the night, every night, is a far younger, far less universal human habit than most of us assume, a product of gaslight and factory schedules more than of biology itself.